Hello everyone, this is your video review for the 5 components of health-related physical fitness for which you will have a quiz to do. So this is mostly going to be review. This is also going to be a little bit of additional information just to make sure we have a good, well-rounded understanding of all 5 components, and then you can go ahead and take that quiz and knock it out. So of course we remember the 5 components are cardiovascular endurance, muscular strength, flexibility, and body composition. So baseline definition for cardiovascular endurance, basically the quiz is going to have 10 questions, 2 on each component. What is the definition, as well as why is it important to focus on? So basic definition for cardiovascular endurance is it is the continuous and extended duration flow of ATP or energy. So again, cardiovascular endurance is the body's ability to extend or have a continuous flow of energy to provide that ATP. So we understand when we did sprint intervals, less than 10 minutes, sometimes we only did like 5 or 6 minutes of sprint intervals in class, even though we were breathing, even though we felt like we were dying, even though our heart rate was jacked up, that was not cardiovascular endurance because it was short in duration, high in intensity. Cardiovascular endurance is more moderate intensity for an extended period of time, and of course it's continuous in nature. It's important because, as you know, ATP, a lot of the production of that comes from mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. I know you're all thinking that. You're saying it in your head. You all love that phrase. And of course, mitochondrial density is important for all forms of everything you need to do because you need energy to do anything. It's also important for immune health and function. Of course, I'm going to talk about that a lot because that's a big thing everybody, of course, is concerned or overly concerned with these days. Moving on then, it's also important, of course, for heart health. We understand that cardiovascular disease is far and away the #1 killer in America, and if you want a healthy heart, you need to practice cardiovascular endurance to have the capacity to do so. All right, moving on to muscular endurance. It is the muscle's ability to activate at a moderate force for an extended period of time. So that's endurance, right? Just like cardiovascular endurance, we talk about moderate intensity, long, continuous, extended duration. Well, muscular endurance is basically the same thing. We're talking about low to moderate force for that extended time. Now, that extended time, we talked about a repetition range, and that repetition range, if you hopefully remember, is 15 plus. So the reps for muscular endurance could be 15, could be 20, could do a set of 50. Doesn't matter, anything over 15 is muscular endurance. This, of course, is extremely important to have to establish a foundation. So if you don't have an endurance in the muscle, if you go ahead and try to get a workout, you're going to burn out rather quickly because you don't have that endurance, that foundation, that basis in order to build upon. It's also important for lifetime fitness activities, anything that you want to go do and extend. A lot of those lifetime fitness activities rely upon a good base of muscular endurance, whether it's lifetime sports or walking, jogging, or gardening. You need to be able to have that muscular endurance. Moving on to muscular strength, that would be the muscle's ability to exert a maximum or near maximum force for a short period of time. So whereas muscular endurance is low in force, high in extended time, muscular strength would be the opposite. It is high in force and low in time. We understand that this is important for muscle and bone density. So there are a whole bunch of studies that show that weight-bearing activity is important for bone density, which is important for people with osteoporosis. And when I was working and training, I had a few clients that had osteoporosis or were actually close to osteoporosis, which is, we were trying to prevent that from furthering. There was one study in particular, and of course it makes the most sense, that actually said in order to get the most bone density, in order to stop osteoporosis the most, you need to actually be working in a strength type setting. That being said, we remember the repetition range for muscular strength is 5 or under. So while it seemed sort of counterintuitive if you didn't know what you were doing, I had these old ladies, we were on the leg press, not necessarily a back squat, but we were doing lots and lots of weight, 5 reps and under, in order to increase that muscle density, which of course then bone density increases as well. Basically, if you have this giant thick muscle and it's trying to pull on your bone, your body knows that your muscle will just snap your bone in half. So it understands that in order to have an overall system that can function, as that muscle gets more dense and more thick, in order to exert that maximum strength, your bone has to get thicker too. So bone density extremely important, muscle density extremely important, and those come from muscular strength. And of course, you probably understand that top end athletic performance also would hugely derive from your muscular strength. Basically, if you want to increase your sprint speed, if you want to increase your vertical height, if you want to increase your soccer kick or whatever it is, you would need that muscular strength, because the stronger you are, your body will then be able to transition and utilize that strength in your sport specific movement or whatever it is that you need. So strength is always important to have. Moving on to flexibility. We talked about flexibility a lot, especially through our warm-up and cool-down, understanding that for our warm-up we did dynamic flexibility, for our cool-down we did static flexibility, and flexibility is the muscle's ability to lengthen or extend or have mobility, whatever it is that you want to say. There's lots of different words that all mean the same thing. It's stretching it, right? So we all understand stretching the muscle is flexibility. This can either be passive or active, and you recall we did the partner-assisted hamstring stretch, and we also did the straight leg raise in order to sort of demonstrate the difference between passive and active mobility. Flexibility, of course, important, and we talked about it a lot as it related to the warm-up injury prevention. So the number one reason that we want to be flexible. Don't want to have tight muscles. They can pull, they can strain, they can cause all sorts of injuries. We want to be able to have some pliability, some mobility in that muscle. And of course, it's also important for power. We talked about the example of the rubber band. The more you can stretch that rubber band back, the further it's going to shoot across the room, more power potential as the muscle can lengthen. That's why flexibility is so important. Moving on to body composition to round out our 5. Body composition, quite simple. It's the ratio of fat to lean tissue. Lean tissue is comprised mostly of muscle and bones. When we were talking about as the muscle thickens, so does the bone have to thicken. That's all lean tissue. Ideally, we want fat to be down and we want lean tissue to be up. So the number on the scale isn't nearly as important as the ratio of your body composition. So you could weigh 170 pounds and you could be working out, and you could lose 10 pounds of fat and gain 10 pounds of muscle. The scale would still say 170 and you would feel terrible, but that shift in body composition is hugely important. So again, when I was training, I would tell clients, especially in that first few months, the scale might not change a lot because we're trying to build that foundation of strength, and that comes with growing muscle. A lot of people don't have much muscle, they have a lot of fat, and so as that ratio shifts, the number on the scale will change almost none. That being said, we want to keep that fat low, and the number on the scale eventually changes, and of course, depending upon your situation, but body composition, important, especially in America, where, of course, we're not number 1 anymore. Mexico overtook us as the most obese nation. We're number 2 in terms of obesity. But the overall effects of obesity are so overwhelming, not just from a healthcare standpoint and the cost, but the fact that the majority of the reason people die are obesity-related illnesses. Cardiovascular diseases, cancers, not only the cost, but the death rates of diabetes, all are terrible. So that's why it's important to have a good body composition to make sure you're in an ideal health. So that way, you don't have to worry about cardiovascular disease. That being said, want to transition a little bit while we're talking about the importance of body composition and health. I don't want to rant too much about the COVID-19, even though I probably could. I think I'm just going to simply say that this should be an ideal time for you to focus on your health and understanding that the majority of the people who are unfortunately suffering or passing from this virus are people with 2 or more comorbidities and or just extremely old. I mean, even though age itself is not a factor, it's mostly the comorbidities, considering over 80% of the people who have passed have 2 or more. So they have a weak heart, they have diabetes, they have cancer, and then the virus comes along and it knocks them over, basically. So an analogy that I would like to use is we probably have all heard of the 3 little pigs and their houses. So one pig makes their house out of some straw. Another pig makes their house out of some sticks, and the last pig makes their house out of stone or brick. Big bad wolf comes around, easily blows over the first one, pretty easily blows over the second one, but the last one stands strong. COVID in this situation would be the big bad wolf, and if you have a house that's made of brick, you don't got to worry. So, house, of course, being a metaphor for your body, making sure you take good care of your body. Make sure you lay that strong, firm foundation, which we've talked about. We've talked about foundational health concepts. We've talked about making sure we keep good care of your body. If it gets to be the point where it's made out of sticks or hay, it's very easy for something that is otherwise pretty innate to come over and blow it down. So health is important. Body composition is a huge factor when it comes to that. Sleep, we have a video over sleep, so hopefully you're still getting your 8 hours. There's no reason not to. Hydration, sunlight, hopefully we finally get some spring type weather here, get some sunlight. All of those things are going to be important to establishing health. And again, if we learn nothing else out of this quarantine, it's that your health is important, your health matters, and there's no better time to start and focus on your health than where you are right now. So start working on building that house out of brick. Start thinking about all 5 of these health related concepts and how it fits into all of that. And otherwise, just take care of yourselves. I will say, for the most part, you guys have done an excellent job in completing these assignments. You guys crack me up with the certain things you're doing, whether it's weightlifting with cats or deciding, and maybe you actually did get a workout, but maybe you didn't think you looked sweaty enough, so you put your water and hair on water on your hair and decided, hey, yep, my bangs got sweaty, but nothing else got sweaty. So that's pretty funny. But otherwise, it's good to see everybody participating. Hopefully you're taking advantage of this time to actually do the work. It's not like I'm asking you to do a lot. A few exercises here and there, workout here or there, some quizzes, not a big deal. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay safe, all of that wonderful stuff, and keep on working. Bye.